I think one of the best things about Anchor is for somebody that was a little nervous going into their podcast, first recording their podcast experience. It gave me all the tools necessary to record my own podcast. It gave me sound bits. It gave me recording tips. It gave me everything. So I would recommend Anchor to anybody who's a first-time podcaster or a veteran looking to expand their brand. In order to get Anchor, you can either download the Anchor app from the store, from your phone's store or computer store, or also go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to the Syracuse Lacrosse Pod. I am your host, Dan Hamer. You can get a hold of me via Twitter and or Instagram. My Twitter is at SULaxPod. That's the official Twitter of the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. My Instagram handle is Cuse1987. This podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and any other platform where you can listen to your podcast. If it's not available on your streaming source, please let me know. I'll do my best to make sure it is available to you. A couple weeks ago, I posed a question to people in Syracuse Water Cooler 2.0 on Facebook. Normally, we'd have in-season talks about lacrosse, but given that Corona has canceled the season, I wanted to go back and for the people that aren't as well versed in lacrosse history as myself and others, I wanted to go back and give them a little touch of it so that people can learn the game. So one of the questions I asked was, what would you like me to discuss about lacrosse history, or Syracuse history to be more exact? And one of the big questions I got from a lot of people was talk about the Powells, talk about the Gates. So we're gonna do the Powells in this episode, and then we're gonna discuss the Gates in the next episode is my plan, and then we're also gonna jump into a little Syracuse history with a special guest that I have planned. But like I said, let's get into the Powells today. Let's discuss the Powells. We're gonna go youngest oldest. We're gonna start with Mike, then Ryan, then Casey. We're going to talk about their high school careers, their Syracuse careers, their pro careers, and what are they up to now? What are they doing to stay busy? Are they still in the lacrosse game? Are they not? Well, let's start with Mike. Mike was born in 1982 and attended Carthage High School, where he was a star. In 2000, he set records for points in a season with 194, points in the game with 15, and also most assists in a season with 120. Following that, he enrolled at Syracuse, where he was deemed one of the most anticipated recruits in lacrosse history. During his freshman season in 2001, he tallied 70 points, 30 goals, and 40 assists, and also 69 ground balls. He led Syracuse to the national championship game, where Syracuse lost to Princeton in overtime. I believe he had a goal and then the first 17 seconds of the overtime, but Princeton came back towards the end of it and scored. It went from during back then, it wasn't a sudden death. It was play the OT till it ended. Now that rule has changed, or years later that rule changed, so now it is sudden death. First team in overtime wins. Anyways, at the end of Powell's freshman season, he was named first team All-American. He was the first Syracuse freshman to be named first team. Following his freshman year, he came back to have 84 points, 42 goals, and 42 assists. He helped lead Syracuse to a national championship when tallying 4 goals and 3 assists. He was also named the tournament's most outstanding player. He also went on to win his first of 2 Tewaaraton's. He is one of two male players to win the Tewaaraton twice. The Tewaaraton is equivalent to a Heisman in college football. For his junior year, he came back and he had his points dropped a little. They dropped to 64 points. Once again, during his sophomore year, he had 84, and during his junior year, he had 64. He had 33 assists, 31 goals. And that was mainly because a lot of the defenses, after winning his first Tewaaraton, they started to focus on him, started to game plan for him, started to make other people beat him. But even though the defense kept focusing on him, Powell led Syracuse to the semifinals, where they would lose to Hopkins 19-8. Came back for a stellar season in 2004, with a vengeance, tallying 89 points, 47 goals, and 42 assists. During that season, Syracuse defeated Hopkins 14-13. They were top seeded Hopkins 14-13 in the semifinals, and defeated second seeded Navy 15-9 to win the national championship. Mike would go on to win his second Tewaaraton and his first Enners Trophy, given to the most outstanding lacrosse player in men's lacrosse. During his Syracuse career, he set some really, really crazy goals, really crazy records that you think about. But when you hear about his brothers, you're going to see why he did that. He set the record for Syracuse's record for points in one's career with 307. I believe that is 15th all time in the NCAA. Somebody can fact check me on that. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize. And that record of 307 was previously shared by older brothers Casey and Ryan. They had 287 points, so something to note. Mike is the only player to win the Jack Turnbull Award 4 times. This award is given to the top attackman in D1. Following his career at Syracuse, Mike shocked the lacrosse world. He pursued a career as a professional musician. During this time, he signed an endorsement contract with Brian Corr, and he worked out of their West Coast office. However, in 2005, Mike joined the MLL and was drafted by the Baltimore Bayhawks, where he teamed up with Gary Gate to win an MLL championship. Mike also played in the All-Star game that year, and he went on to win the MVP of that game. Now, something to note, they did have the trick competition back then. If somebody wants to see some great videos, look up the Mike Powell All-Star Game trick videos. He then sat out the 2006 season and continued playing on for years to come. Following that career, though, he turned back to music. He still plays at local venues. He has put out albums such as Tied to the Rail, 21 Rounds. He's a must-see show, in my opinion. I've seen him multiple times. Had the chance to talk to him. Would love to get him on this podcast at some point just to talk about his musical career, and his college career. Just to have a good discussion with him about life in general, maybe advice for a future lacrosse player or something like that. We'll try and get Mike on at some point. But anyways, let's talk about Ryan, though. Enough about Mike. Let's talk about Ryan. Let's talk about the brothers that paved the way for Mike to have a great college career. Like Mike, Ryan grew up in Carthage, New York, and starred in high school, where he was a 2-time All-Empire State team member. Interesting to note, though, Ryan didn't play organized lacrosse until 7th grade, so that's a lesson to be learned for people that are just starting playing lacrosse that are in high school. You can never start too late. If you have the talent and you put in the hard work, you can obviously get to where Ryan is. He ended his high school career with 429 points and was the fifth all-time leading scorer in New York State history. His 429 points, 244 goals, and 185 assists. After starring at Carthage, he went on to follow the footsteps of his older brother Casey and star at Syracuse. He had his most productive years as a sophomore, junior, and senior at Syracuse, while tallying 73 points. Uh, he had 37 goals, 36 assists his freshman year, or his sophomore season, excuse me. 85 points his junior year, and 96 points his senior year, respectively. He was a four-time All-American. During his career at Syracuse, he was tied for the Syracuse points in the career with 287 points. He was also the winner of the Lieutenant Raymond J. Emmers Award, along with the Lieutenant Colonel Jack Thornbill Award. Following his Syracuse career, Ryan went on to have a 9-year career in the NLL and a 7 career in the MLL. Now, for those who don't know, the NLL is an indoor lacrosse league, National Lacrosse League, they call it, and that runs throughout the wintertime. And Major League Lacrosse is MLL, and that runs throughout the summertime. That's in cities wherever there's teams that were in Rochester, there's teams all over the place. During his MLL career, Ryan Powell was awarded the 2001 and 2006 MVP trophy, along with winning the 2006 Offensive Player of the Year. He was also a six-time MLL All-Star. Excuse me. Now, for people that don't realize that, that's extremely tough to do, because this is where the guys that, before there was a bunch of leagues, before there was the PLLs, before there was a bunch of other box leagues that people could play in, this was the summer league that people would play in. The kids would get out of college, the kids that started the Kyle Harrisons of the world, the Rabels of the world, and they would go right to that. So just imagine the competition. 6-time MLL All-Star. He's also the Rochester Rattlers all-time leading scorer. Rochester is one of the MLL franchises. I don't remember what year they started, but they've been around a while. They seem to pick a lot of Syracuse players. They're no longer in Syracuse. They relocated to Dallas recently, are now known as the Dallas Rattlers. Ryan was the first player to earn MVP and Offensive Player in the same season. Now think about that. That's about as rare, I guess, as Mike Powell winning one of two Tewatons, and while also winning his 4 Jack Thornbill Awards. That's just rare for any player to. That's just rare for a player. One player who can get the MVP. Other players will get the Offensive Player. You're never going to see that. That's very rare. It may have changed now, but at least back then, that's what it seemed like. Ryan was also the first lacrosse player endorsed by Nike in 2004. As I've talked about previously in this podcast, you had guys like Paul Rabel after the fact. Paul Rabel, Kyle Harrison, Ryan Boyle. There are many other names that were probably endorsed by Nike, but Ryan was one of the first full lacrosse players endorsed by Nike. And it was the first time Nike dipped their foot in the water for lacrosse, and thankfully they've kept in it. They've grown. In 2018, Ryan was inducted into the 2018, Ryan was inducted into the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame. However, let's go back, and then we'll go back to the 2018 National Hall of Fame. When Ryan was playing the MLL, he founded Rhino Lacrosse. Now, for those who also don't know, even though the guys were playing in the MLL circuit, that was just a part-time job. A lot of these guys had a regular job to afford what they could do. Basically, they would play lacrosse on the weekend. They would work their day job. So Ryan's day job happened to be founding Rhino Lacrosse. Rhino Lacrosse is a huge company on the West Coast. They started out a little small, but now they've grown tremendously, and they've continued to grow. and they've kind of formed a bond. Ryan has formed a bond with Syracuse forever. To guys like Tucker Dornovich, who have been through Ryan's program out in Colorado, Ryan's camps through Rhino, have committed to Syracuse. That's the one thing to realize, going off on a tangent real quick, but that's the one thing that people need to realize. You had guys like Jim Morrissey, you have other guys that are in the coaching ranks that went to SU, who are essentially recruiting for SU, the Roy Colseys of the world. Roy Colsey recruited Brendan Curry, essentially. I think Jim Morrissey, somebody can correct me on this, I'm wrong. I want to say he had Ben Williams for 2 years. Anyways, that's not the point, but the fact is that the Syracuse tree spreads wide, and everybody helps out with it. So what's Ryan doing now? So besides working with Rhino Lacrosse, Ryan works with Powell Lacrosse as well. He and his brothers Mike and Casey, and I believe Mason also was a part of it. They formed Powell Lacrosse. Ryan has also joined the ACC network as a lacrosse analyst. Now, for those who don't know, the ACC network just formed, and thankfully they have picked up lacrosse coverage, and they cover just about every game, it seems like, or they have covered every game so far. We'll see how that continues in years. Hopefully that helps grow the game. More people will watch. Ryan has been doing this along with continuing to run Rhino and run Rhino lacrosse camps across the country. Now, the other thing to this is Ryan Powell is also on the Syracuse staff. His ultimate goal is to become a college lacrosse coach, but he's working on that dream while serving as a program advisor for camps, clinics, and player identification. To me, that essentially means that he identifies certain players he thinks Syracuse coaches should pursue, should recruit, should reach out to. Basically, guys that he can see in camps all around. You know, if he has a coach and if he has a camp in Texas, and he used to see a guy like Brandon Mullins. That's a name that some people know, but I don't know if that's the case. But I'm just saying in general, maybe he scouted maybe before they had somebody else in this position, and to me, they essentially serve as a scout because Ryan can look at the Tucker Dornovich out west in Oregon and look at other guys and say, Coach Desko, this guy is a great recruit that you might want to go get, that you might want to go take a look at, because it allows Coach Desko to focus on the Syracuse area in recruiting, and it also allows Ryan to spread his wealth of Powell lacrosse knowledge among many others. It also helps with that. But let's go to the oldest. Oldest Casey. He was the first Powell to wear the number 22 for Syracuse. Ryan and Mike also wore 22. Casey followed Gary Gate with wearing 22. Casey was also a star in high school. He also went on to star at Syracuse. He was a 3-time All-American, attackman, and midfielder, and helped win Syracuse a national championship in 1995. Now, I believe when all three of these were in school, they were part of the 22 consecutive Final Fours. I have to fact check that, but I believe that's the case. Casey Powell is the only player in NCAA lacrosse history to win All-American in multiple positions. Now, you see guys now that are just defensive middies. You see guys that are just offensive middies, just tackling. It's rare to see a guy that plays both positions and plays it as good as Casey played midfielder and attackman. And just think about that, winning All-American at both positions. In 1996, Casey won the most outstanding player at the midfield line and followed that up with the most outstanding player in 1998. Casey racked up 287 points. That ties him for second all-time with his younger brother Ryan, And the youngest brother, Mike Powell, holds the record at 307. That's just something to note. Casey and Ryan set the record. Mike happened to break it. Casey's awards in college include first team All-American in 96, 97, and 98, second team All-American in 95, the Lieutenant Raymond Enters Award in 97 and 98, the Jack Turnbull Award in 98, and the McLaughlin Award, which was awarded to the D1 National Midfielder of the Year in 1996. He was also a member of the NCAA tournament, all-tournament team for all 4 years during his career. I don't have Casey's exact stats in front of me, but I can tell you he had a very memorable career. I remember going to watch him. I would get the autographs before games. I would get the autographs after I would play catch in the parking lot. But we'll get into that in a couple episodes from now when we have our guest and we talk a little Syracuse. Talk a little Syracuse pregame, actually. We're going to discuss that. We're also going to get into some history and our most memorable moments. So, following his Syracuse career, Casey went on to have a fantastic MLL and NLL career. Now, like I said before, MLL is Major League Lacrosse, and that's played during the summer, and the NLL is National League Lacrosse. In the inaugural season of the MLL, Casey helped lead the Long Island Lizards to a championship. In 2003, the Lizards would win another championship. In 2004, Casey was traded to the Rochester Rattlers as part of a 5-player deal. That year, he finished second on the Rattlers with 57 points. 2005, though, was a career year for Casey, where he went on to put together 57 points again and ended up winning the Player of the Week award 3 out of the final 4 weeks of the season. In his NLL career, Casey Powell was the first choice of the Rochester Nighthawks in 1998 and played with them for 2 seasons before bouncing around the league. While in the MLL, he earned awards such as MLL Offensive Player of the Year in 2005, MLL Offensive Player of the Year in 2014, MLL MVP 2014. He was also named MVP of the NLL in 2010, becoming the first American player to win the award. Now, I think that American players have won it since then. I'm sure somebody can correct me, somebody that studies the NLL as much as they do. But just the fact that that was the first American. Now, the NLL has been around for a while. I remember watching it back in 1998. I remember watching it other years besides that. But the fact that 2010 he became the first American tells you how much diversity there is in that game, because these are guys that a lot of the guys that are playing NLL are coming from Canada, Canada and America basically. So a lot of talent on the Canadian side for the NLL. As of 2014, LacrosseAllStars.com had named Casey Powell the #1 indoor-outdoor American lacrosse player. He was also named Lacrosse Magazine. He was also named to Lacrosse Magazine's All-Century team. Casey was inducted into the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame in 2017. And what are you doing now? What's he doing now, you ask? Well, he's followed up just like Rhino. He actually serves as a volunteer coach for Northwestern. He also serves as the director of player development for Team 1 Lacrosse. Team 1 Lacrosse is a youth club located about 7 miles from Northwestern's campus. He has served them for about 2 years. His most memorable quote states that there's a tremendous amount of role models in this game. So sharing my resources and relationships with the people that I am trying to lead is something that is important to me. Now think about that quote and think about the 3 guys we just talked about. These are guys that have the tremendous outlooks on the game. They have all kinds of stats. They have all kinds of great think about all the people they've reached throughout their playing career. I mean, look at Ryan's career. He had a 7-year career in the MLL. Think about all the players that he's played with. Think about the guys that he's played against. Think about his coaches. Think about everything else. Those are guys that are going to reach out to people. That's why when we talk about lacrosse, we talk about a tree. So you've got the first whatever programs up. You've got those players down below. Eventually, that's going to spread out to every area of the country because you're going to get guys that are coming from Colorado. You're going to get guys that are coming from California. We've already seen guys come from Texas. We've already seen guys come from the South. The Southwest is the only area really that doesn't have lacrosse, and I assume, given how the tree works, that eventually we'll see that happen. But just to sum this up, I mean, for me personally, I don't want to sound biased, but Mike Powell was probably my favorite. He was my favorite player to watch, favorite player to talk to. I would say I interact with him now when I go see his music. He plays at local venues, like I said. Very friendly. He is somebody that will talk to you for hours about his playing career, and he will talk to you about his musical playing career. And he just interacts with the fans so well. Close-knit atmospheres for his shows. I can't say a bad thing about his shows, honestly. He plays along with the Black River Band. That's the band that he's part of. But if you want to check out some really good music, check out his stuff on iTunes. Anywhere else you can get your music. So shout out to him for having a great career post-lacrosse. On the next episode, we're going to discuss the Gates and their impact on the program. Like I said, shout out to the Syracuse water cooler for asking me to do this. For asking questions. Really appreciate it. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to me via Twitter at the SU Lax Pod. That's the official Twitter of the SU Lax Podcast. My Instagram handle is Cuse1987. Also, reach out to the people at Syracuse Water Cooler 2.0 on Facebook. We're a very tight-knit community. We discuss all things SU. So a huge shout-out to them. You can reach out to us there. We discuss lacrosse. We discuss everything. So during lacrosse season, I hope to have some spirited discussions in there. We didn't really get into it this time, but we'll see. So the next couple episodes that I'm looking at a Gates episode. I'm also looking at doing, like I said, a pregame SU festivities thing with a friend of mine. We're going to try and set up the date for that, and we're going to just talk pregame festivities, what we do. We're also going to mix in a little bit of Syracuse history because I want to get his thoughts on the history of the program as he's a season ticket holder as well. Can't wait to hear his thoughts on it. Then hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're also going to discuss, I want to do 2 episodes actually. I want to do a pre-1980s lacrosse history episode for those, including myself, who honestly need to be educated on the beginning of the program. And also for those who, I guess for everybody, because there's people that remember it, there's people that don't remember it. But we'll get into that, and then I'm also going to do a post-'80s episode. That's more where I specialize in. Me personally, I started watching lacrosse. I can't remember the first game I watched, but I can also remember. I don't want to get into too many stories because I want to save those for when I talk about the pregame stuff, the memories of SU lacrosse, which basically going to do that with my friend once again. But I want to save that for that. So once again, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. You can reach out to me via Twitter. Once again, that is SU Lax Pod. That's the official Twitter of the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. My Instagram handle is Cuse1987. Once again, if this podcast isn't available where you stream it, from your streaming services, please reach out to me on one of those on social media. Let me know. I'm also available at sulaxpod@gmail.com if you feel so inclined to send an email. Once again, as I've said before in previous episodes, please let me know what you think I'm doing good, what you think I'm doing bad, what you think I can improve on, things you like, things you don't like. I truly appreciate the feedback that I've gotten from people. And if you feel so inclined, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Once again, thank you for listening.